Good afternoon and welcome to today's Yellowstone Advisory webinar with Mirriad Advertising PLC. We're delighted to have with us Stephan Beringer, CEO, and Mark Melvin, EVP of Sales and Brand Partnerships with responsibility for North and South America. And I'd now like to hand over to Stephan Beringer to start the presentation.
All right, thank you, Alex. Good afternoon. I'm here in New York, as you've just said. Next to me is my colleague, Mark Melvin, who runs the Americas for us. And we have David Dorrance in London. Hi, David, who will be not presenting today. But obviously, if we have Q&A going into finance, he's standing by. So today's agenda is really about introducing very quickly, giving some context in terms of where we are today as a company, where we're headed, and then we'll put a very heavy emphasis on North America. Alex, as you've just said, the developments in the US are absolutely significant and staggering. So this is the right moment now to give a little bit more color. And then I'll briefly come back. So Mark will be talking about the US, of course. I'll briefly come back to talk about 22 and what to expect. And then we'll be open for questions. First thing we'd like to do is really run a video as a little bit of a refresher. And you will see many new things in there that are actually quite exciting, including some staggering numbers in terms of the impressions we're able to deliver today, the amount of content that we're accessing to create inventory, and you will see what you're seeing already on this page here, some very, very big names. So let's run the video. All right. What do I move to the next slide? Okay. All right. So as a company, and most of you know this, of course, we are building the in-content advertising marketplace across the biggest media markets in the world, namely the US and Canada, China. Japan is a new entry. You might have seen our announcement from this week that we're starting to activate Mirriad in the Japanese market. We've just signed a partnership with Fuji TV, which is obviously a very, very good move. And then logically in the UK, Germany, and France. And what we've done on the right-hand side, just to put things a little bit into perspective, is to give you a sense of the size of the different markets that we are entering. And as you can see here, the green is North America, which when we look at, the forecast for 2024, going to 376 or 8, I can't read it from here, billion spent a year. Compared to the other markets, it's actually, fact of the matter is that the US market is bigger than all the other markets taken together. And the reason why I'm putting so much emphasis on this point here is that when I joined Mirriad in 2018 and Mark joined early 2019 and we started embarking on the US journey, the company was really operating in markets like India and Brazil and so forth. And so really shifting the emphasis completely to the one and only market that is literally the one that drives technologies and platforms has been top priority number one. And so it's a good thing to have Mark today, who can explain a little bit about the journey and where we are and the success that we have. So that just on a side note, but obviously a very central note. And as you know, we are now expanding really across multiple areas of content. So the basic premise in terms of the strategic need and the commercial need for our solution has not changed. It got actually more robust in terms of consumers avoiding television advertising, going into SVOD and AVOD environments where there's little or no ads at all. Then the phenomenon of the annoyance of ads as we see them today, so nobody pays attention anymore. And then, as you all know, the cookie is going away. And what we've done here is just to show you three things. On the left-hand side, you see video and TV media spend on the rise, and these are the North American figures. And here again, Zenith numbers telling us two things. One, that television advertising by no means is sort of, you know, going down completely south. It is still the biggest sort of single market in terms of 69 billion being the estimates for 2024. And obviously digital video being extremely on the rise, powered by connected TV and so forth. Now, on the right-hand side are stats that really explain the issue. So a lot of money is being spent. However, there's no reach gain. In other words, clients or brands pay more and more, invest more and more money into media, but they don't get more and more eyeballs. So that's issue number one, which effectively means that reaching people is becoming more expensive. And even when you reach people, and that's the one on the bottom, just think of it this way: if you reach 100 people, 60 of these people don't pay attention to the ad. That's what's actually happening, but just 40%. And as you will see later, we have phenomenal proof now that basically we are closing that gap very significantly. So you've seen this one here before, which literally the center of our strategy. We look at a market of north of $145 billion US being spent in TV and video advertising every year across the core markets. And that's not including Japan, by the way, and 6%. And this is going into the 6% of ad breaks. And we are obviously going into the green field, into the white space of the content itself, as you know, which represents 94% of the opportunity. We're leading this category. We have the most content partnerships rapidly going up. I think last year when we presented, or maybe 6 months ago, probably we had a number of 40 or 50. I don't remember. We're now at 80 partners that we're activating in the markets. We're running campaigns for the largest advertisers. Mark will talk about that later. The results, you will see this too, are absolutely staggering, just proving without any minimal doubt that this solution is literally a solve, as we have always predicted it would be, but now we have more and more evidence that it's doing the job. And then in terms of the data intelligence that we're building through the many campaigns and through all the work we're doing, absolutely unique. Also increased the number of patents, now reaching 35. I think the last time we spoke, we were at 29, and that's 6 months ago. So Mark, I'll hand over to you now to talk us through the developments in North America.
Great, thanks, Stephan. All right, so really, when we got into the strategy of how to conquer in content, we had to take it from both sides of the house, because we had to look at the supply partners and build enough supply that was compelling for advertisers to be able to come in and reach their core target consumers. And to do that, you need the ad demand as well. So it was a challenge where we needed both boats to rise consecutively. And we've been able to successfully do that through building out a wide range of content partnerships, bringing in and drawing in key, blue chip advertisers that are looking for this inventory, that are looking to future-proof their marketing in the current climate where it's becoming much more expensive and much more challenging, as Stephan pointed out, to reach those consumers who are going to drive their bottom line. So once we've established now a wide array of content partners and a large demand side that's looking for these opportunities, now we're working on all the elements that it takes to build our system and our platform into the media buying ecosystem. So that requires, a lot of research and data, obviously brands and agencies being able to, seamlessly activate against this content, platform to manage all of this inventory. And that's really what we'll walk you through and show you what we've been building over time. That is, as Stephan mentioned, we're the only place, much of this is protected by our 35 patents, and we're the only destination where it's going to be able to seamlessly do this, which gets us to the ultimate goal of becoming a line item within planning systems. By a line item, that means it's very easy to transact, becomes programmatic, and it's very easy to shift share of dollars from one media format to our media format. Okay, so to touch on some of the highlights here in North America, as Stephan mentioned, there was very little coming into 2019 that was in place already. We've scaled up our business development team and our sales team to drive both of those key pillars of supply and demand consecutively, signed some key partnerships in the more of the linear space, including Disney and A&E networks. But in 2021, we've really seen explosive growth across the category, broadening out our sales capabilities as we've driven in more revenue, hiring an external sales force that's out there bringing in client demand and interest against the new programming that we have to be able to activate in. We signed a major food and beverage company as a strategic partner, also brought on our first agency partnership that gets us into the flow where they're out there pitching us to their clients, winning new business, utilizing our innovative technology and our capabilities. We've expanded now into key categories that are helping us broaden out the demographics that we can reach that are really important to many marketers. So as you look at television and traditional media formats, it's very hard to reach a younger consumer set. So by expanding into influencer and music content, which is where a lot of this audience is spending their time, now we have a much more robust way to service requests for proposals from clients to be able to go back to them with a very effective and compelling package for them to buy. And it just gives us, many more opportunities to bring in more and more differentiated clients that have different audience targets. We've tested our live tech development. So this is enabling us to open up the sports arena, to open up new capabilities in live programming that really doesn't exist today. That this is an area that is growing quickly, where people are looking for innovation and looking for new solutions to stand out, because many of those programming formats are cluttered with other advertising. So we're looking at ways to enhance in-game play in a much more creative and dynamic way than's been presented in the past. When it comes to integrating into the ecosystem, we now have an ad serving partner. So again, that allows us to more seamlessly deliver these ads, deliver them targeted. We'll get into some more details there. And by broadening out, again, the content scope and the different capabilities through these various partnerships, we're now able to create compelling packages. We'll touch on some of the success that we've had this past holiday. That's also important for us as we look at Black History Month, Hispanic Heritage Month, and many of the other core sales timings for various clients. They're just important for them to drive their bottom line revenue. In addition to that, we've scaled our research capabilities and our data around our platform that, again, enables us to better target and serve advertising and prove the efficacy of our ad format. So here are a few stats. We've seen some massive growth this year with over 180% increase in our sales revenue. That's also translating to higher campaign values, meaning they're spending more with us as they come back and they renew their campaigns, or committing higher budgets when they're coming in as first-time advertisers. And I mentioned the success in holiday. This was our first real opportunity to aggregate this great content across multiple partners and put it out in market as a brand new way to activate at a key sales time period for so many advertisers. So we saw an 800% lift in our revenue against holiday campaigns, which is just staggering. And you can see that as the content has grown across the year, we're really just hitting our stride. Had some great growth in the first half of the year, but now accelerating quickly and exponentially, as Stephan mentioned, into the second half of the year with over 530% increase in the amount of content that we can use to package and target clients. That now is creating a much more compelling and robust opportunity for more and more advertisers to come in, for more and more agencies to activate which has resulted in over 230% increase in the number of agencies that we're activating with currently. So just to give you a little visual on where this was in Q4 19, there were only 4 partners that were actually signed with us and that we were able to work with. And 2 of these were relatively new at this point in time. So that has changed dramatically over the course of time. And as we look at our current situation, you're seeing those top tier brands, really massive verticals, from Disney to A&E networks, but not just, A&E networks, it's really the whole portfolio of that network group. So as we started with Lifetime and a few movies there, it's expanded now across History Channel, A&E, and Lifetime, and extending into their digital platforms. So this is massive growth organically within organizations where we sign partnerships, but also new flourishing partnerships and new verticals like influencer. Influential is a massive partner, as well as We Are Verified, and a brand new partner, Jelly Smack. So these are destinations for influencers and influencer content for large, young audiences where they're tuning in to this new content, and we're able to now help them monetize that and help them reach their targets. Also expanding into more content direct relationships with various studios and into Canada as a brand new market for us, signing the largest broadcaster in that space and quickly activating with some brands. Beyond the linear and digital, where that is our core business, also expanded into music. And you can see here working with every one of the majors in the music space. And below, what you can't see is really the pipeline in terms of the amount of conversations that are happening across media owners and content creators throughout the entire industry that is just going to continue to round out the capabilities. So here you can really see in real terms what I was saying with those 2 charts, or showcasing now the amount of content hours is tremendously larger. And again, this creates the opportunity for us to package differently, to be able to present the opportunities differently, to be able to center opportunities around key sales timings and key initiatives for clients. And that is helping us win more deals, convert more RFPs, and it's generating a massive amount of brand new impressions into the marketplace, which helps that reach story where they're having difficulty reaching consumers. We can now help them. And I'll show you some stats on that in a little bit. But what this also does is it expands into all forms of entertainment content. There are so many different types of situations and contextual moments where we can target with this now vast library of content. One of the most interesting and growing areas that we're seeing a lot of interest from clients is Black-owned, minority-owned, and Spanish and other language content for various audiences. We've seen a tremendous amount of investment here. There's a lot of commitments throughout the marketplace to service these creators, and that's a strategy for us to be able to help them. Mark Pritchard recently quoted that there's not enough inventory for them to invest in that they want to in the multicultural space and the minority-owned content space. We're creating new inventory for these partners when they're already maxed out on the current inventory that they have. So it's creating a win-win situation across the board, both for those creators and those distributors, and also the marketers looking to reach those key audiences. Beyond the diversity of content types, one of the key elements to what we have, and this ties to the reach argument that we can provide, is that our creative formats are varied in such a way that they're always unique, they're always fresh, they're always new for the viewer, because they're being presented in so many varying ways, where the amount of frequency that might be limited from a commercial spot, it's not the same State Farm commercial that you see over and over again in every pod when you're watching a VOD service or linear TV. This is actually a brand new experience, another touch point. It's adding frequency and it's adding value to the marketer's overall media mix. And here, now you can see a little glimpse of really the level of advertisers that have leaned in heavily. And these are massive brands. These are massive portfolios that are fully engaged, some of which are in partnership with us. When you look at a PepsiCo, who is a leader in innovation and and in marketing and driving really their space in terms of what they do with marketing. And they look at us as future-proofing their marketing plan, because they know what's happening. They're watching what's happening to the viewership trends. And by being in the content, they can actually secure their place and know that they're always going to be able to engage their consumers. AT&T, P&G, Lexus, there are so many key names here, but then you look at how we're able to create new moments for brands that have trouble either creating custom content on their own because it's just not something that's going to get viewed, or integrating in a more traditional way into content. And that touches squarely on a lot of the financial clients that we've been able to deliver campaigns for, including Fidelity and Charles Schwab and MasterCard. These are difficult brands to work into a story. We can naturally and seamlessly target the right audience for them, serve it to the right moment that makes sense for them to show up. And the pipeline and the momentum continues into this year and is continuing to grow with marquee brands and new divisions within these organizations that are investing heavily. And that translates into, again, the number of agencies and the exposure we have throughout the entire industry as we're integrating into their buying systems, into their planning methodologies. We're now working with every single major holding company in the country, and our framework agreements are in discussion with so many of them so that we can bring this to their clients more on a wholesale value. So, oh, sorry. There we go. So as Stephan pointed out before, some of the key challenges we have absolutely solved and are helping to close that gap of reach. But more importantly, not only are we reaching more people when you advertise in the content, you're gaining their attention when they're most leaned in, when they're most engaged, which is important for advertisers because that's what converts, right? They need to know that someone actually saw their ad and actually engaged with it. And there's so much ad skipping and less targeting capabilities that are available today, where this is a key element where we can utilize our technology to really get in the right moment and the mindset that's going to drive results. So we'll share a few of those results with you now. And key to this, the most important, or at least the beginning of it all, is that incremental reach. We're seeing through our research with Nielsen that we're driving on average 23% more eyeballs than you can get with your traditional TV spots in a program. That's massive lift. This is, these are lost impressions that are going to other platforms, that are walking out of the room, that are engaged in their phone during commercial breaks, that are now fully engaged during the programming time. And this is when we can capitalize on that attention and that additional reach to drive performance. And we're seeing this across various brand categories and various network partners, all driving massive incremental reach for our brand partners. But beyond the reach, let's really focus in on that attention and really the power of reaching someone when they're engaged. So from an awareness perspective, and I think many marketers would look at what we do and say, yep, great, of course, it should drive awareness. It does, and it does it in a massive way. So that's your top funnel marketing. What they probably don't anticipate before they run a campaign with us is that we're driving mid-funnel and lower funnel metrics as well. So when it comes to brand affinity, it's one of the leading indicators of someone who's loving your brand, who's going to be a repeat customer, who's going to actually buy a product. By being able to lift brand affinity by 10 plus points is a massive feat off of really high baselines. We're seeing this consistently in our programs, and even being able to point to massive lifts in consumption and sales of people's products. So the true attribution of their marketing spend utilizing Mirriad inventory. So how do we do it, and how do we make this seamless and fit into the buying ecosystem? It's because we've built a platform. And again, this points back to a lot of the patents that have been developed, the intellectual property that's developed over time within Mirriad. There's 35 current patents. It's the expertise that we have in the marketplace. It's the way that we're able to go to market and present solutions that are really solving some of the biggest challenges as the media landscape has shifted so drastically for so many people. So with cookies going away, as Stephan mentioned, with the just tracking personally identifiable information in general not being available, product placement, contextual placement has become that much more important. But we take it a step further. We can utilize our platform and all the metadata that we have to be able to target you to the right context, find that right emotional setting. We have advertisers who only want to be in happy settings because that's their brand promise and that's the way they want to align. Various character alignments or different genres or locations. Our platform captures and catalogs all of these scenes to be able to do this at scale. So here's a real life play out of a search within the platform looking for scenes that are designed to reach families in a breakfast moment at their kitchen table. So you're seeing that search happen in real time in the platform, and then now the play out of the campaign that was actually delivered for Quaker. So it's revolutionary. It's something that no one else has conceptualized. There's nothing else out there like this. And it really sets us apart in being able to integrate again into that system of how people buy and what they're going to buy and how they can actually search for inventory that's going to reach their objectives. And what is really, really important about that is that both for the IP owner and for the brands, all of the mechanisms are in place to ensure that their content is treated in the way that they intend it to be. They have the approval rights. They can go into the system and say, these scenes are cleared. We can't clear this talent or this category for advertising. All the guardrails are in place to be able to, for us to be able to scale this in mass, which is no small undertaking once we talk about programmatic and being able to deliver this to audiences. So those rights management features are here on the platform, but also the brand safety features. And this is an area where clients are very sensitive about where their creative runs. You probably all saw the Applebee's spot against the Ukrainian war on CNN. It's a terrible look. It cannot happen. And we have the safeguards in place to ensure brand safety. Our brands know how they're going to appear in the content before anything ever goes on air. So that is massive and baked into the platform already. So I should have played this out, but as you can see, there's the look and feel of how people can search through this content, actually approve or comment on any form of guardrails that they'd like to place against it. And this is both from the IP owner and also the brand perspective. So this gets us to dynamic ad insertion. And this really is the linchpin for us, fully integrating into the ecosystem, having equal measurement and equal opportunity for buyers to be able to look at our inventory on their platform, migrate dollars from, say, linear TV or social or whatever verticals they're activating in, and move it into a Mirriad activation in a Mirriad ad format. So programmatic is going to enable that seamless delivery, but also enable all of the targeting components that they get with digital media, like geo, time of day, various audience segments. And this really gets us to what is the ultimate pinnacle of being a transactional line item. I think that's it from my part, Stephan.
That's it, Mark?
That's it.
That's all you have to say? All right, thank you, Mark. Okay, so I'll wrap it up before we come to Q&A. Just with a little bit of a repetition in terms of, as we've seen before, the trajectory in terms of how we're getting to scale and how we're doing this across all the different markets, or actually in the different markets, is really always the same principle in terms of we need to create market relevance. And we do this by building, and it's still quite a manual process, by building supply and demand, right? And turning chicken and egg into an upward spiral. In that context then, and this is where we have to see great developments now, especially in the US, but also in China, by the way, in terms of, and other markets with the agency relationships, where the agencies eventually become, and I don't like the term, but channel partners or strategic partners of ours who help us ultimately disseminate or drive the adoption further without us having to invest into too much sales, right? So that's the one thing, but we're still in a phase where the scale requires manual intervention, right, on top of the platform that we have, of course, that has the whole workflow, et cetera, built in. Now, the next step, and that's all point number one. The next step is really point number two, which is about the systemic or the technical integration, and also from a data standpoint with the media buying, media planning, I should say, and buying ecosystem, both linear and programmatic. And obviously, these conversations can only happen when two things are there. One, we are relevant because there's money in the market and there's intention from big brands like P&G. And it's a bit unfortunate that you couldn't show the right-hand side, but the names get bigger and bigger and bigger. But anyway, but showing that there's demand there and showing that we have supply in terms of content partnerships, that wakes up, right, the how can I say, the infrastructure or the ecosystem companies, such as, you know, the Googles, the Trade Desks, the Media Oceans, and tons of names, of course, who are basically those companies that are facilitating the trade, right, to simplify it and to put it into normal language. And this is now the moment this year, starting with the United States of America, where we are building these or connecting the dots, integrating, starting to integrate with the ecosystem. And as a result of that, we will become a listed piece of inventory in the systems. And as Mark has said, and we've said it many times before, that's the moment where in-content inventory is one mouse click away from other inventory, right? May this be an ad break, a traditional buy, and what have you not. And this is then the moment where we transcend into the line item phase, right? I dare to say, Mark, that, and everybody here on our conference, that we are starting to become, with some clients, somewhat of a line item, right? We've seen a car manufacturer launching a new vehicle, and basically this was not about a test campaign, let's experiment a little bit, but basically Mirriad, right, was part of their media schedule already. You've spoken about the food and beverages company, etc., and there's more of them. So basically on that side, we are already regarded as a line item, but then basically just on appearing on the screen of a buyer is what really drives the scale. And I think, you know, everything is pointing in that direction, including the conversations, the active conversations that we have. And it's more like conversations always sounds a bit like, but basically where we are discussing the integrations and what the path is, right, with a couple of these companies that play a major role here. Right. So what does that mean for 2022? We have some very clear, how can I say, initiatives, very focused approach for this year and what we want to achieve. Just given every area a little bit of a headline. So North America is full steam, no pressure on Mark and the team, but basically it's all about acquiring and getting more supply partners and getting more extraction, so more per partner, more content out of them, so that we drive the content curve further upwards. Brand and agency partnerships, that's very logical. And of course, build a more recurring revenue pipeline, which historically has always been a challenge for us, right? Because we had sporadic revenue, very difficult to plan and to precisely forecast. But now I think we're getting to more and more robustness in 2022, which is a fantastic thing. So we'll have a clear foundation now. In international markets, I think it's more about converting those very distinct strategic alliances or within these alliances that we have, namely Tencent Video. Allow me just 1 minute to talk a bit about Tencent Video and where we are in China. So we have, as you know, we have changed the contract. We are now on a model that is better from a sell-out perspective than the past model, which was very show related. Now we are actually literally activating programmatically together with Tencent, so that a client comes in and says, I want to reach 50 million people in this demographic in the month of October. Please run the campaign for me in content. And then together with Tencent, but basically it's our tech doing this, we will be running campaigns across multiple shows that run on the Tencent platforms and across multiple scenes. Just to give you a sense of the magnitude, we are now, I think at the time we spoke, when we introduced it in October, we spoke about 1,500 scenes. Now we are 2,100, just to give you an idea of the scale of what our platform is able to do. So literally the brand is spread across 2,100 scenes, right, in a certain period. So that's happening with Tencent, and we're seeing a good pickup now finally in terms of, yes, the market demand, the market is waking up to the proposition. We're adding a couple of other things as well. So this is now also Tencent really getting into it more than in the past, and after a period, as you all know, where, how can I say, certain content areas were just not allowed to be released due to regulatory reasons, which I will not further comment on, but factually there was a huge opportunity that we lost, especially last year, to be honest, on the back of the former contract. So this is moving in the right direction now. I'll not dwell into the other opportunities, but there's a lot of good stuff happening. France may be worth mentioning, that France Télévisions, biggest broadcaster in France, it's from our perspective the smallest market. However, interesting that France Télévisions are introducing Mirriad as a product, right? It's called Mirriad Reach, and it's basically in-content advertising supposed to add reach in a time, in the prime time, so post 8 p.m. when advertising is not, traditional advertising is not allowed to run. I think it's a very interesting point to observe here, how the market is developing and how the channels are really starting to intensively embrace Mirriad, which is obviously a great sign. In terms of integration and tech, I said it before, it's all about connecting the dots. So our platform connecting into the systems that are out there. We're starting with dynamic insertion as one big sort of, well, actually the starting point for programmatic, right? Because programmatic buys happen on an audience basis. So eventually Mark, who is at P&G, would be buying an audience that sits in Dallas. I'm making this up, of course. And if we can't serve just to the Dallas audience, then the programmatic buy doesn't make sense. So, and that's exactly what the ad server does, right? Working through the SSAI partners to deliver the ads to the exact person in the right location at the right time and so forth. So that's the infrastructure that we've now started building in the US, and that will allow us the further path in terms of the integration. I dare to say that once this happens, and then once we are in the market, and that's what the partners say that they want to do this year, then definitely Mirriad is more than a household name. It is the big new thing in the marketplace. This is my last point then, really about the ad tech partnerships, you know, on the back of the dynamic delivery, building out these partnerships, connecting from a data standpoint, is all things that will be happening this year. So that's it for us. Alex, we can go to Q&A. Happy to, just running quickly the video as a background.
Brilliant. You're happy to keep that on the background as we go to Q&A, Stephan?
Yes.
Yeah, wonderful. Mark and Stephan, thank you very much for that presentation. It's fantastic to hear what's been going on in the US, and from the brands and the content and the partnerships you've talked about, it sounds like there's been a huge amount of progress. So many congratulations on that. We look forward to more this year. We are now going to go to Q&A, and just as a reminder, if you'd like to ask a question, please type it into the chat box at the bottom of your screen. And it'd be good to get a number of questions on there. We've had a couple of come in ahead of time, and I'll start off with sort of a topic which came in from a couple of people, which was really on the subject of tier ones, and really talking about you know, signing the first tier one in October 2020, and expectations for signing further tier ones later in 2021. Interestingly, you know, looking at the presentation you've just given, I saw some big brand names that I might potentially describe as tier ones on there, but I wondered if you could just comment about your expectations for signing tier ones, and you know, how that's going.
Sure.
You want to take it?
Yeah, I'll take it. So we're certainly focused on, you know, that premier content, and we've had success with Bell Media, tier one, the biggest broadcaster in Canada. But then we've also broadened out to look at the various verticals to reach audiences everywhere they're consuming media, right? Broadcast TV and the way people consume is shifting. So we're broadening to reach the influencer marketplace with music, with various other programming, with producers directly, to build these robust campaigns and be able to target advertisers. But tier ones are important. They're part of the ecosystem. And certainly as we roll out dynamic ad insertion, more and more partners are going to be that much more engaged because this becomes a seamless play. So yes, we've written more tier ones and also have expanded the capabilities to be able to just better target audiences.
Okay, thank you. You talked about moving away or expanding your reach and using influencers. And I think last year you signed a partnership with Influential. Could you just talk about that partnership and how you expect it to grow this year?
Sure. Yeah. So they've been really a fantastic partner in market. Their team is out there selling. Our team is out there selling. We quickly activated campaigns and are looking to continue to branch out. We've got a lot of activity right now against that category, not just through Influential, but through other influencer partnerships that we've signed. But they are really the cornerstone and one of our key partners in that space because of such a large network. So yeah, no, it's massive opportunity in the
demand is phenomenal,
is there,
right? The
yeah.
brands want this again. I think making this move, if I may just add this, in terms of really looking at these different content verticals, right? So we have television, we have VOD, we have sports, we have influencer, we have music. It's actually the right strategy because that allows us to really show up right in front of a client. And even when you think about a big FMCG company like P&G, they have from Olay to Gillette, etc., different brands. And so having the ability to respond to the different needs because we can serve different audiences is absolutely key. You mentioned the name Mark Pritchard, who of course is the legend, so to say, in marketing, and that's his understanding, right? Everybody can be a buyer. We just need to understand how to get them, and that's what this does. So so in a way, I think it's showing that this platform and our model is able to operate across all these different content verticals, and that is what we are pursuing with very high level of determination because that's the winning formula, frankly.
Yeah.
Okay. Are you able to convert the impact, so individual viewers, into a cost per thousand sell, and what sort of cost per thousand are you hoping to achieve?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, every partner we work with, they provide us with estimates so that we can actually sell against the CPM. It's important for marketers to be able to benchmark against their other media formats. So that's absolutely the way we do it as well. This is a media format. This is not traditional product placement, right? I think that's also a differentiator between us. You're building a campaign and driving scale across a flight that's important, and it's within a window that's important for your sales objectives, which you cannot achieve through traditional means. So that scale and that reach and being able to tie it back to a CPM is critical. And we're seeing premium digital CPMs in our marketplace, and they're usually in line with the various platforms. So whether music has its own marketplace, influencer has its, television has its marketplace, and we're seeing premium CPMs.
Okay.
I don't think I can comment on where they'll go, but that's what we're seeing today.
Thank you. I think you answered some of this in the presentation, Stephan, but I'll ask the question as it's come in, and it's really referring to Chinese revenue. It looked like Chinese revenue had a bit of a setback in the second half of last year, and I think in your presentation you seem to suggest it's actually picked up quite nicely and it's encouraging. But wondered if you could just talk about what happened there and how supportive are Tencent of Mirriad.
So just to start with the last question, Tencent are very supportive. I'll not go into the details, but we have basically a team now managing Mirriad as a proposition within Tencent, and so this is going in the right direction. And there's no issue on that side at all. We have innovated. We've introduced the CPM solution. Again, there's other solutions I don't want to disclose because they're brand new that are being added. So in other words, the product that we're bringing to market together is way more rounded and way more relevant. That allows us, just maybe also to give you a good symptom, allows us now to have these very serious conversations, and hopefully, David can confirm we're about to sign a first contract with a major agency group in China. And basically, that's also the result of having more to offer. Now, let me come to the sort of to the issue or the challenge that we've encountered last year. We were running out of this first phase of contract, right? As you will remember, there was a good minimum guarantee, that was also backing the exclusivity that we gave to Tencent, right? So we were not allowed to work with anybody else in the market. We had a minimum guarantee, fantastic. However, because of what we saw, like this show by show model in terms of selling on a show by show basis, that ran into challenges because some of these shows, even if they were produced, suddenly were put on hold, delayed, or canceled, right? So these things happened, and they were obviously very detrimental to us in terms of as a business, because we saw, well, hang on, there's no way we can convert here and drive real revenue. And that's why we've together with Tencent, we've been working on this CPM thing, by the way, for a longer time already, but it's not trivial. I think I gave you an idea earlier in terms of how massive these campaigns now are. And I think as we're introducing this, there's probably, and David can confirm that, the available content that we're accessing in this model, it's not just the new shows, but it's basically the entire content portfolio, gives us so much more mass to take to the market and sell. And we're seeing it because we're running real campaigns now, they're coming in, and actually also in the old model. So it's not that the old model does not exist anymore. But so I think we should look at China now really coming back. We had, again, the cliff came because we transitioned from an old contract with a high minimum guarantee and exclusivity to a, if you will, a standard Mirriad agreement, which is all about rev share. And now we have a rev share, which is great. And now it's on us and Tencent to move the market with a proposition that I do believe is way more mature and just much more powerful than in the past. So that's why we're looking positively into China.
Okay, thank you. A question here about the music industry. Is it proving a little bit more difficult to break into than originally envisaged? And I'll add a little sub question for me. Can you talk about any music videos where we might see some of the Mirriad content?
Yeah, sure. So it's not proven difficult to break into the industry. It's assembling really a new way to go to market, right? So like Stephan mentioned, in terms of driving scale against content in China, we're driving scale against music video because these are perishable assets that come and go within a few weeks to a month in terms of viewership. So we're managing to build out the proposition that you buy this as an audience, right? So you're not buying an artist, you're buying the audience that's watching various artists. And that proposition is coming together. We're seeing a lot of interest there. We've closed numerous deals with Lexus, which we've been out in the trade with Tecate. So we're seeing brand interest, and that's growing. It's migrating them to a new way of thinking, which is driving scale against audience versus the specific content or specific artist. This is not an artist endorsement that we're selling an audience-based media buy.
Okay, thank you. Compliment here. Thank you for the presentation, Stephan and Mark. And then followed by 2 questions. And you may not be able to answer this, but I'll ask them anyway. What is your current view of when the revenue line could look like in, say, 5 years' time? And what's your current view of when Mirriad will reach profitability? And as I said, you may not be able to answer that, but you want to take a stab at it. Yeah,
I mean, it's very difficult to answer. In 5 years from now, I mean, I had a good meeting with a person in the United States. Oops. And basically that gentleman was asking me, so Stephan, how much inventory can you add per hour? And I said, well, maybe we can add somewhere between 10 and 20 avails per hour. And so he said, wow, that's crazy. And I'm being, moderate here in my answer. That's crazy because that means that effectively you could be adding 50, 60% of inventory to the current available inventory, which makes you a company with a potential of addressing, owning kind of, 25, 30 billion in revenue. Now, let's not reach out, for stars and be crazy about it, but we have a fair chance to go for very, very high revenue in the very moment we integrate with these platforms. And that being said, then on that note, I think our positioning, without dwelling too much into the detail in terms of having a platform that is enabling a marketplace rather than being the marketplace itself, is distinctive advantage. Mark, you will confirm this. We are in many of these conversations together. And that makes us very, very confident that we can drive this business forward in a massive way. And ultimately, if I may say this, that's the reason why I joined Mirriad. I believe we have potential to create a unicorn here with a solution that ultimately, as Mark has shown earlier, solves real business problems, period, right? And if as a brand you want to grow, the first thing you need to do, you need to reach audiences. And if you can't reach audiences, you don't grow. It's as simple as that. We can enable brands to grow because we reach their audiences. So, the timing is very difficult to say exactly what will happen when. So far, what we've seen is that it's dominoes that fall, and now we have the next domino. I dare to say that the Nielsen numbers that are proving this massive average, what was 23% reach increase, and in the peaks up to 39%. I mean, these are insane numbers. Apologies for the term, and this will make the next domino pieces fall. And then in parallel, the programmatic lane and that side of the integration will yet again have a huge impact. Once we go out with that, it's going to have a massive impact on the entire marketplace and the perception of our company. Let's stop there.
Okay. Look, you said a lot of positive things here, and I'm going to sort of pull in a couple of questions which are on the same topic, which is sort of share ownership from the board. And the question, I guess, is, share ownership doesn't appear to be as high as perhaps it could be. Should this CEO own some more shares?
Yeah, the answer is yes, and I will own more shares, so I will be more active, that's for sure. I'd just like to, though, add to that, to that question, or in my answer, number one is that my incentive is really tied to the interest of our shareholders. Very clear. I mean, you can look into the scheme and you will see that. And ultimately, don't forget that, for what it's worth, but I'm basically banking my career into this company, and we will make this a massive success. So that's my answer to that question.
Okay, thank you, Stephan. Wanted a question here. Why are the minority channels proving more receptive to the product?
Well, right now there's a lot of demand against their inventory because all these major agencies have mandated certain budgets to invest there, but many of these companies have smaller audiences and less inventory to actually activate against, and they quickly max out in terms of the investment they can take. So by increasing that available inventory and creating new inventory to be able to activate in, that's driving value for them. So it's a massive win there. And these agencies are, and to Mark Richards' quote, they're having difficulty placing those dollars. So it's a win for them too.
Okay. Will the adoption of programmatic in America be a big bang transition, or will it be a sort of gradual waterfall deployment? And when do you anticipate full integration with clients?
Yeah, it's I mean, there's integration that has to happen, right? We're out there with the solution now, and there are various touch points that we need to integrate with different, numerous partners. But once those pipes are in place, then it's a big bang, and that's not far off.
Okay. Could you comment about the Japanese market? It looks incredibly large. is it a conservative one or one where it's ripe for potential for the Mirriad product?
I think, it's part of the Japanese, I should say, culture, that things are being taken step by step. And there's a, I don't know if any one of you has worked in Japan, but there's a certain way of doing things and just reassuring and so forth and so forth. The fact that, Fuji has gone into our partnership or the collaboration, that's how we speak in Japanese, it's a collaboration, and that basically they have run a special after this first campaign, just explaining to the viewers that there's an introduction of this new ad format, right, which is very interesting to observe. Speaks to two things. One, the ambition to make it happen, and we do know that, right? Otherwise, you wouldn't get a TV special. But secondly, also how can I say, the approach in terms of, it's a gradual build for sure. Now, that being said, as we all know, it's one of or proportionally, eventually, the biggest TV market in the world. There's billions of dollars and pounds going into that. It could happen fast, but I'm cautious in predicting or forecasting that. Let's take it step in the Japanese culture, and hope for a powerful second half of the year.
Okay, there's a question here that you may wish to bring David into, but commenting on the Panmure Gordon note, has operating costs rising from 13.9 million to 19 million, and what is the additional money being spent on?
David, you're on mute, just in case you want to answer. Thank you.
You want me to answer this?
Yeah. Well,
so when we raised the additional funds at the end of 2020, we flagged where we'd be investing, which would be into additional sales resource and into our tech team, and that's where we're putting the additional monies. So we held back on some of the investment in 2021 with COVID, but Mark will tell you his team is increasing and he's continuing to recruit in the US. So we are broadly doubling, I guess, the team in the US, and we've continued to add tech people in London. And we're also spending a bit more on marketing to ensure that we reach people, and also on market research. So there's the research studies that we're showing. So there's a kind of, it's across a number of areas, but I think, summary, and I can't go into the detail of all the increases, but the summary is it's into headcount, and mostly slanted towards the US.
Okay, thank you. We're probably coming towards the end of this sort of the allotted time, but try and slip in a couple of quick questions here. One, because I guess we're in the UK, someone's asking about ITV. Could you tie up a deal to utilize all of ITV's program library so that you something like BritBox becomes a valuable revenue generator for you and for ITV?
I think if I understand the question correctly, I mean, technically speaking, yes, we could. That's not the challenge. And anyway, I don't want to disclose anything here. And as you will imagine, we're trying to work with ITV. And I don't know, that's my answer. David, did I misread the question?
No, I think technically we could work with any partner with a big library. You need a willing partner.
Okay, thank you. And then we'll got one final question here, which is how many tier one media companies are near to signing up, and would this create a moat for the company's technology?
Yeah, I mean, there's only a few left at this point, and as I mentioned before, they have changed their sites and they're more set on the large digital and streaming conglomerates, and they're trying to become those themselves. So everyone is engaged with the DAI, dynamic ad insertion solution, and I think that's going to be the turning point where we're able to activate and seamlessly transact. it just becomes part of the everyday buying infrastructure.
Okay, thank you. I'm afraid we've come to the sort of end of the webinar today. We've tried to get through as many questions as we can, and so apologies if we haven't been able to cover all the questions, but we've tried to do as many as we can. I'd just like to thank you all for attending, and also to ask you, as you leave, you'll come to a feedback survey. If you wouldn't mind completing that survey, I know that management find that helpful. So I'd just like to say thank you to Mark, to Stephan, and to David for presenting and answering these questions today. And we hope to see you all soon.
Great.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Alex. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.